Hey everybody, Richie here from Rocket Chronicles, and in this video I'm going to talk about the current state of the construction of this rocket, which has completed inside fin fillets, and I've done a little bit of outside fin fillet work here. So I haven't uploaded a video to the channel in a few weeks, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is I haven't made a whole lot more progress on the construction of the rocket other than what I'm going to show you in this video. And secondly is I don't have a dedicated YouTube setup like I'm recording here right now. And I had to break down my main camera, which is the camera I'm talking into, to go do some video and photography projects. And I had to take the microphones with me, everything like that. So I had to break all that down. Thirdly, I should say, the overhead camera that we're going to use here in a minute to look down at the mat, I normally don't break that down. I had an EOS M3 that I had left set up there to shoot HD video, and my wife went to Thailand and she needed a small travel camera, so I let her take the EOS M3. And now I'm back to using a DJI camera, which isn't optimum for what I like to do, but it's going to get me through this video, I hope. So let's talk about these inside fin fillets. We'll go down here to the mat in a minute and look with the overhead camera, but I've completed all of the inside fin fillets, all 6 of them, I guess I should say. And how I did that, let me set this down, and I'll show this in more detail from the overhead, but how I did that was I used some surgical tubing mounted on a dowel, and I injected it in there. So let's go ahead and go down here on the mat and we'll check it out. So I don't have a whole lot of room down here on the mat, and if my camera stays where it's supposed to be. So down here on the mat, looking at the fin fillets, these are the outside fillets. I'm going to show some photos on the screen right now of the inside fin fillets, and you can kind of see it's a messy job in there. It didn't come out nowhere near a beautiful job, but it doesn't have to be a beautiful job because they are inside fin fillets. So that's just the nature of it. You're mounting a 54 millimeter motor tube inside of a 75 millimeter body tube or a 3-inch body tube, and there's not a whole lot of room to work in there. So looking back here, let me see if I can get so if you look at this side right here, you can kind of see that the black epoxy, that's on the inside of the body tube, and that's how almost thin and translucent this fiberglass is. You can see that black epoxy in there. Now let me show you what I did to get it in there. I used surgical tubing that I purchased, I think, at Home Depot. I used surgical tubing and I mounted it on a dowel with this really crappy blue tape that barely wants to stick. And what I did was I measured down, and if you follow along with what I'm saying here, I measured down to where the fin root started, or fin tab as some of us call it. And these don't have a full fin tab, and you can go back in the previous video and see, I'll put a card up above about the problem I had where I had gaps. The fin tab runs about 15 inches, and then this part just sits on the outside of the body tube, and there was gaps under there. But anyway, back to this. So what I did was I measured how far in it would go, and leaving myself enough tubing sticking out. What I would do is mix up Pro Set epoxy. That's this black is Pro Set. It's Pro Set 175 /173, and I would preload after I mixed it up. After I mixed it up in a little cup like this, I would draw it up into one of these 1 milliliter syringes, and I would inject it and preload this whole thing. Now, in theory, if this tubing, which is perfect size for a fillet, lays in there. Now this would be on the inside, imagine on the inside. If this laid in there, the amount of epoxy that's in there, if you were to push it out and pull this out as you did it, you would have a perfect fillet. In theory, that's the way it should work, but it doesn't work that way. So what I did was I preloaded it, and I can't do this. I can't do a video of this. At least I can't do it because it's just so hard working and I have such a tight space here, but I'm just going to do my best to explain it. So I have it preloaded, and then once it's preloaded, I would use a 5 milliliter syringe, which I don't have handy here. I would use a 5 milliliter, and I would have this preloaded all the way up to here. So I actually had extra epoxy, more than what I needed. And I would just pump air with the 5 milliliter in from this end. Just pretend that that's a 5 milliliter. I would pump air in, and as I pumped the air in, I would pull this out. So it would essentially look something similar to this. And of course, I wasn't doing it on this table because there's no real room here. But I would start, about like that. And then as I would run the air in, excuse me, as I would run the air in, I would just start to pull this out. And sometimes I would stop and check along the way. Now, obviously, it didn't get all the epoxy out of the tube, so you end up wasting a little bit. And then whatever epoxy was left in here, because you had to put an extra amount in here in order to have enough to draw out, I guess I should say. So whatever epoxy was left in here, I would use popsicle stick, and I would take it and swipe it onto these guys. Now, when I would do these, I would have to make sure I had enough extra epoxy in here. If you remember these, if you're following along and you remember in previous videos, these had gaps, and the gaps were pretty severe. They went from 53 thousandths down to 20 thousandths. So I would have to have enough epoxy to do each side at the same time. And when you look at these fillets, you see they're a little nicer back here than they are here. And that's just because I did these at one time, and then I continued on down doing these. And this one is where I did a little bit of sanding. Now, these are not my finished outside fillets. These are going to be, and I'm going to go back up here to the other camera. So these are not going to be my outside fillets. These are what I call primary fillets. I've never heard anybody use that term before. It's just something that I come up with. These are the primary fillets. These are what's going to hold everything in place. This is Pro Set epoxy. I'm going to use Metal Set epoxy, which I showed in a previous video. I'm going to use Metal Set as the secondary fillets, or what I call vanity fillets. They're just for the aesthetics. They're going to be nice fillets. And again, we'll go back down here to the mat. So they're going to be nice, really nice, if I can focus on that. They're going to be really nice fillets over top of these fillets. And the Metal Set, just, the reason I'm doing this is I feel that the Pro Set is a better epoxy for adhering to everything. The Metal Set, I have made fillets that were just totally Metal Set all the way on 4-inch rockets. Never had a problem with them. But again, I'm trying to build this rocket as solid as I can. So I did this, but this isn't the nicest epoxy for making beautiful fillets. So the Metal Set is going to go over top. It sands out nice. I'll feather it out here, do it up here. And that's kind of how the process of the fillets are going to go. But now, what is the next step? The next step is, now that these inside fin fillets are done, the next step is the foam. Foam is going to go in the aft section here, and then you can see there's a centering ring right here. Foam will go in this forward section up to the top of the motor tube, and I have a ring that is kind of notched out a little bit here for the shock cord that's coming through, the Kevlar shock cord. So I can then cap off the top, and when I do my foam in here, I can cap off the bottom. I have a centering ring. And then once that's capped off, the top is capped off, then I will move on to these secondary fillets, vanity fillets. And then we will move on to the motor mount. Boy, I've got so much on my mind here. I'm losing track of what I'm talking about. Anyway, so that's it. And that was the reason why it took me so long to get uploaded, was I had to get my camera set up back in place. And I was actually down, just at the end of this video, I wanted to mention I was down at Red Glare just yesterday, and which was April 2nd. And down at Red Glare, which is the MDRA field down in Maryland, Higgs Farm. And it was awesome. And I'll end this video by just putting a little bit of highlights, just a little bit of highlights from that. I think Dan Michael's Patriot that was taken off on like 5L motors was awesome. So, hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hit like, hit subscribe, come back again. And I'm Harmless, and I'll just chronicleize more of what I do with rockets. Have a great day, everybody.